And pop on in the comments. Let me know that you're here. Hopefully, this mic is positioned well. Hope everybody's having a great Sunday. And I thought that I would get on here and give a bit more of a personal context to my video on the Nebraska CU rivalry. My hope to see that continued through the rest of this decade into the 2030s. And I want to clarify because I feel like maybe some of the viewers or watchers, commenters, maybe might have missed what I was trying to say. Maybe that was my bad for not being eloquent enough to explain my position. But in no way am I saying that Prime needs anybody to be successful. Does he need anybody to generate media attention for himself or for the program or anything like that? But I think CU and Nebraska are both at very interesting points within where they're at with rebuilding their programs, where I think that if you have a foe and there's already history built there, just imagine how much greater it can be if both of these schools decide to lean into it, because we're in a really interesting position right now as a program that's in the Pac-12. And I think Nebraska can empathize with this to a degree, maybe not the full-on experience that CU has had being in the Pac-12, just without any really real rivals. It's my impression that they don't really have much of that either. Again, they do have Iowa there, but nothing is heated than when Colorado and Nebraska have played each other. And for a lot of new Buffs fans that are tuning in for the first time following Colorado with what's going on with the program for the first time this year, you might not understand or get this rivalry, but it spans back decades. It goes back to when Coach Mack took over the Buffs in the 80s, understanding that there was an importance in finding a foe nearby. There was importance in making a rivalry something extra for you to care about. Having an extra special game every year that you would look forward to, where there is hatred and bad blood. And we got to give him credit for building that CU Nebraska rivalry for us. And there's been a lot of, I mean, you can go study it, you can look it up on YouTube. There are so many different big moments between these two teams over the last handful of decades. I'm thinking about even as early, 2001. We're talking about CU being, I think, like the number 14 or 12 ranked team, beating the number 2 Nebraska team to ruin their national championship hopes by a score of like 62-36. On the flip side, Nebraska did the same thing in 95 on their way to a national championship, destroying us. I think we were ranked number 7 at the time. And there are things that have happened between these fan bases that we just won't forget. And in the late 80s, when our starting quarterback, Sal Inessi, died, this is a Nebraska Cornhusker fan base that cheered for the death of our starting quarterback, that made fun of players as they were entering the field to play, that their quarterback is dead of leukemia, throwing batteries at them. This is stuff that like spans back decades, that when you see that game on September 9th for the first time, and you see at least a third to a half of Nebraska fans in that stadium, that's just my prediction. They're going to be there. They are one of the best fan bases, traveling fan bases in the country. You're going to understand how much more this rivalry means to us that have experienced it our whole lives. I mean, even living out here, there are sports bars or restaurants or certain, other businesses that you might enter that they throw up the Broncos flag, the Rockies flag, the Avs flag, the Nuggets flag, and then you know what they're throwing up for their college football flag? It's a Nebraska Cornhuskers flag. Here in Colorado, here in the Denver Boulder area, here in the Front Range. Growing up, I mean, even experienced this when I was coming out here to visit my aunt every summer. We would go to, for instance, Estes Park, go to the national park to do some hiking, go to the shops to do some shopping afterwards, and I'm wanting to get some sports memorabilia. And you know what's there on the big strip? It's a full-on apparel and memorabilia store just for Nebraska Cornhusker fans here in the state of Colorado. This is a special rivalry, and with where we're at with the Pac-12 right now not having a future past 7 months from now, I think it's important that we prioritize at least some sort of rivalry stability as we're moving forward into this next realm of CU bus football, whatever conference that we're going to be in. Because I think right now, I think most likely we're going to be going to a new conference, even if that's back to the Big 12. Essentially, that's a new conference. And you're going to have to spend time building up rivalries from scratch. And if I'm looking at Big 12, okay, we do have Kansas State, which is great. Not as big of a rival as what Nebraska means to us, but I think with where Nebraska's at as well, we can both benefit from having this game every year to be in the national discussion. And again, I would liken Coach Prime, I guess, to Floyd Mayweather. It's, so many people love watching all of his fights because, he's one of the greatest boxers to do it ever. But there are certain matchups and certain things where you got to understand, like, I would hope that we would sell the show a little bit more, that there's a little bit more emphasis that should be put on this matchup, such as like what Floyd Mayweather did against Manny Pacquiao. Regardless of what you think about Conor McGregor's boxing ability, that was a show that they sold and put on, and that was so exciting leading up to that match. And again, I'm not saying that Coach Prime needs anybody to be successful, but just imagine how greater things could be if we lean into this rivalry that already has so much history. And Nebraska, again, they're in a place where, there's such a contrast. There's such a contrast between the two states. There's such a contrast between coaching styles, such a contrast between history. Nebraska's been one of these big powerhouse programs traditionally, and even in their down years, they've recruited still very, very well. Their fan base is one of the best in the country. And CU, honestly, we've kind of played little brother to them a lot of the time. And I think that this is just an opportunity where if both programs can realize that, like, this is always going to be like one of the main tickets in greater college football every year, I think that they should work to make that happen, especially since I believe both programs are on the up and up. And again, it takes a long time to develop these other rivalries. I wish that we had something like that in the Pac-12. I wish that we had something like that, like Miami and Florida State. But that's where we're at with the state of college football. I don't want to see this rivalry fall away like what has happened to Texas A&M and Texas. And I don't really know whose fault it is, if both of those schools were fine not playing each other after A&M left for the SEC or not. I'm glad that they won't be able to dodge it anymore, that we'll get to see it with Texas joining the SEC soon. But I think what I'm trying to get at is that there's an importance, and there's just an enhancement that happens when there's a real rivalry. And again, I'm not saying that Nebraska needs us to be successful or Coach Prime needs Nebraska to be successful. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that imagine how much greater everything could be if they lean into this, if they lean into this main event, because that's what this is. This is like a boxing main event. And trust me, you're going to understand, new bus fans, you're going to understand September 9th. You're going to start to understand that even though these teams have not been good the last 10 years, even though we've barely played each other, I think a couple times within the last 10 or so years, you're going to understand that there's a deep-seated hatred for these programs, and it's something that shouldn't just fall by the wayside because of we're in different conferences. I think within the instability of college football, of how often schedules change, especially the Big Ten schedule is going to start to change a lot more now with USC and UCLA being in there. Again, we have no idea where Colorado is going to be here in a year when it comes to their conference. a lot of instability. One thing that both of these schools could benefit from keeping a priority is having this rivalry intact in their non-conference game schedule. All right, so that's my rant. That about um, wraps it all up. I'll go ahead and get into the comments here because we got Charlie Speaks. Congrats on the growth of the show. You keep improving by leaps and bounds. Coach is making wine from water. Shanghai checking in. Go Buffs. Wow. That is so cool, Charlie. Thank you so much for the kind words. Yeah, I think I'm about 130 something videos in doing this now. So your words on my growth have that means a lot. And that's really cool that you're checking in from Shanghai. I'm not sure what time it is there, but I appreciate you catching the live stream. We've also had fans from Brazil check in as well, so that means a lot seeing that Buffs Nation, that Coach Prime truly has this international draw, which I think is so exciting. And you're right, Coach Prime has made wine from water. He has been a miracle worker with this program. It's it's hard still today, 6 months into this whole thing, to put into words exactly how special this is, how um, it just still feels so surreal and like a dream. And what he has done in flipping over this roster, again, most people aren't paying attention to the levels of detail that we are here within the Buffs community about how Coach Prime's building this roster, but it's impressive. It's leaps and bounds above anything that I was expecting when he first signed in December, which I'm wanting to talk a little bit more about why that is in a second. Well, let me get to this. Countdown timer, what's up? Hello. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate your constant support. I know you've been here for a long time now. Charlie Speaks, again, rivalries are what makes sports interesting. It becomes generational, and the majority of people understand that the hate is centered around the game only. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as a graduate student coming to CU, I got that first taste of that in person when Nebraska came here in 2019. And again, you can look up the photos of it. Um, Nebraska fans were all over Boulder, absolutely all over Boulder in their red. They were downtown. They weren't just on campus. Of course, they filled up, the vast majority of the entire stadium. And honestly, like, that stuff's embarrassing as a Buffs fan. Like, it sucks. And there's like emotional scarring that happens when you see a fan base like that come over and take over your house. Now, they did waste all that money to come see see their team lose, but I'm sure they all had a great time in Boulder. And I think Boulder, no matter what conference CU is in, Boulder will always be one of those destination cities for a road game, because Denver's right there a half hour away. You got the mountains, you got the hiking, you got great food, and all of that, which is it's just a great time to come here. Like, this is a great excuse to get out and take a little vacation. So it's been frustrating as a Buffs fan, because we, outside of this game with Nebraska, since we left for the Pac-12 in 2010, there really hasn't been that. I mean, we would love to beat USC, but I don't think USC considers us anything of a rival. Same with Utah. And Colorado State, like, that's a good in-state rivalry, but I would definitely prioritize keeping this going every year compared to keeping up the Rocky Mountain Showdown, for most years. Now, we are doing a lot of home and homes with CSU throughout the next 15 years or so, and that's gonna be great. That's exciting. But what I'm trying to say is, if there's an opportunity for us to oh my gosh, 8 a.m. Monday, FYI. Well, I'm hoping I'm a good start to getting your workday started. I lost what I was saying there. I don't even remember. Didn't take my Adderall today. But the other thing that I did want to talk about too, Charlie Speaks, you reminded me of, is the miracles that Coach Prime has worked here. It hasn't just been, well, it has been with recruiting and building the roster, but a lot of people don't realize that many of the coaching staffs prior, and I'm thinking within, let's just take, since they've been in the Pac-12 on, so you got McIntyre, you got Darrell, you got Mel Tucker, you have, oh gosh, why am I blanking on this? Former CU player, Embry, sorry. You got those guys. They were all hamstrung with like pretty high academic restrictions. And like for instance, if like CU hasn't offered like general studies degrees, they haven't offered like physical education degrees, and they've increased. Previously, they had increased kind of their academic standards for athletes to get into the university. Now, I mean that's all fine and dandy or whatever, but at the end of the day, like CU is a great public university. Like this is a wonderful state school to go to, but by no means is CU the likes of like Cal Berkeley. Um, and we're not even close to being something like Notre Dame or Stanford or anything like that. So or like UT. UT is a great example of like a very high end state school, and CU's just not there. I mean, we have great engineering programs, space, uh, uh, aero engineering programs, healthcare, law school, business school, all that, but we're not at that level. And so to have a coaching staff that's it's already kind of landlocked, that is in a state that's not a football powerhouse, to already be tied, have your hands tied behind your back when it comes to having just a small portion of the transfer pool that can have their that can have their credits transfer over, or that can get to the university, was a huge hamstring when it came to recruiting prior to Coach Prime. And I think the only reason Coach Prime came here, or like one of the main reasons, is because he said like, y'all got to get rid of this, and I'm not coming here and I'm not doing this thing if I'm going to have any restrictions academically. And so you've seen that they've launched this pilot program, and this is after years of pressure on the administration to change these rules. And sometimes you just have to hit rock bottom, because the school president's hearing about this all the time. The provost is hearing about this all the time. Rick George, the AD, hearing about this all the time for years. And I think they reached their breaking point with the combination of somebody as special as Coach Prime saying, I can take this job, but you got to change this. So now we do allow athletes to come in here and pursue general studies, to pursue different degrees like that, to have more flexibility in what credits transfer over. So we're like the majority of schools now, which is great. Countdown timer. Is it like UCLA academically? I would, this is just going off like the cuff, but my guess is that UCLA is still a more prestigious university academically. I would definitely say that. But man, my bus family could prove me wrong, and I would have no idea, but I definitely feel like they're better. A lot of the California universities are definitely on another level, and we're a good school, but we're not trying to be Ivy League. We've never been like that. So any sort of, I guess, reputation in the past that you feel like you've heard about Colorado in terms of like, well, this is a tough university, that's why they haven't been able to get transfers. No. It's just, we just had ridiculous academic standards for where we were at. So anyways, guys, I think I'm going to wrap this up, but thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. And again, we'll see what happens on September 9th. This is going to be a fun game, and I think a lot of new Buffs fans, I would encourage you to go watch the 95 matchup between CU and Nebraska. Go watch the matchup in 2001 between CU and Nebraska. Go watch the Gospel of Mac, which is an ESPN 30 for 30 that covers the Colorado Buffaloes in the 80s and 90s on their way to a national championship, and touches on greatly their rivalry with Nebraska and how special it is. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, I appreciate y'all hearing me out. Countdown timer. Are you going to watch the Nuggets game tonight? Yes, I got some tickets from work to the watch party tonight, so I will go again on well, for me it's tomorrow night, but yeah, hopefully they can get that sweep. And I mean, that was just a lot of fun. Yeah, I work for a company out here that has a box at Ball Arena, so every now and then I'm able to swing tickets to the games, which is nice, and then get some tickets to the watch parties that they hold at the stadium for away games, which is a lot of fun. But sadly, this is our last year that we're going to have the box. So hopefully, I can get myself to one more game, which would mean hopefully an NBA Finals appearance. So, but yeah, proud of the Nuggets. This isn't a surprise to me. They've played fantastic all year. They've been the number one team in the whole year with generating the highest shot quality in the NBA. They can make their shots, and I'm glad that people are finally starting to take notice of just how fun, how well put together this team is. It's been a 7-year project. They play good, unselfish team basketball, and I mean they're like the true hometown team of the Nuggets. The Broncos have a national or international fan base, at this point. Um, and I think there's Avs fans all over the country, and in Canada. But Denver, the Nuggets are truly like a local team for this area. And so it's something that's very special to see them hopefully get to their first NBA Finals here this week. So fingers crossed for that. But appreciate y'all. Again, hit that like and let me know what you think in the comments, and Go Buffs.